And I guess it felt normal to me. But he was pointing out how unusual that was for neighbors to have a fence with a gate in it. And the gate was open.
We're right in the middle of this thing right now.
The thought in my mind all the time.
Yeah.
That I was always welcome to come over and hang out. And bring my friends and my daughter to go take a swim if it was frying outside. It was really hot in the summer here. And Jerry was always amazing. And I can remember one time throwing a pair of trunks in the swimming pool.
Yeah, sure.
Because it was the first time that my daughter was coming over. And
not just yourself.
Just like he looked at me like, what are you, crazy?
Yeah.
But home was important to Jerry. Home was really important, and Brad alluded to that when he was, and Bob did also, about how when Jerry was really, really sick in the hospital in the springtime, and he was calling everybody and saying, come and get me, and he called Brad, and Brad was going, no, Jerry, I can't come and get you, and Jerry said on the phone, well, you're not a very good friend. So the next day, I went down to Kaiser to visit him, and I realized he had this opening in his chest with a tube because they were feeding him. It was some kind of feeding tube. Nobody could have taken him home, but that's all he wanted. He wanted to get home. So we used to have a cat. Our cat used to go over and hang out at Jer's house, and then Jer started having dogs. So the dogs would come over here. And so we had free dogs. They were amazing. I got dogs to love and that loved me, and I didn't have to feed them or take them to the vet. I loved it. And especially Lacey. I miss Lacey like crazy. 4 things. I'll go through this really fast. Lisa told me this, and it's true. Jerry never said no. Jerry never said no. You know, you could ask him for the moon, and he'd figure out how to give you whatever you wanted. He never let me down. He was completely dependable and loving. And if he loved you, that was all it took. You know, just, Jerry, do this. And, sure. And every year on my birthday, he would write me these little notes. And this was the one from this year. 3rd July 2014. W. It's short for one. W. I want to commemorate and commiserate you are reaching another year of existence. Having you as a loving neighbor is one of my life's extras. We've created a park next to one. There's a little park across the street. And I celebrate our access to each other's yards. If Max and Moochie could talk, they'd also be singing, or arcing, we put in parentheses, their appreciation for knowing you. Brad and you are fixtures in our lives. Enjoy your day as we celebrate knowing and caring about you. Peace and love. J.R.M. He loved me too.
As many of you guys know, and most of you, or not most of you, a lot of you were my dad's students, or maybe people that he taught and was a counselor for. And Sketch is one of them. Christian lives here at the house and has been a great friend of my dad's for a long, long time. On the rocks and doing a lot with him. I want to have Sketch come in and say some words.
Well, obviously Jerry's touched so many people in such very special ways, and for me, like, Jerry appeared in my life. I had basically 3 points. It was the beginning of my relationship with Jerry, the middle, the rockiness that came with it, you know, and up till this very moment. And you know, when I met him, my father had kind of vanished from my life when I was 16, and I had Jerry as a teacher. He was my former creative writing teacher. And when I met him, I was 16, and I remember there was two other students that were there, and it was about to be summer, and I remember these two students who, we had special activities together, if you will, and they were like, hey, we got to go say bye to Jerry first before summer, before we leave. So it was because of those two that introduced me to Jerry, and the fact that like he had this poster in his classroom of a zigzag man. And it said, enjoy, at the bottom. And in a lot of ways, a lot of people are like, man, he kind of looks like Jerry. He looks like the zigzag man. Because, he still had the bit of the comb over, but the goatee was there. And eventually he shaved it off, and then he became Bryan Cranston from Breaking Bad. But, throughout it all, he always had this certain look that only Jerry could, he had that look in his eyes. It was weird. It's like, as soon as you saw him, you didn't have to know him you didn't even have to speak the same language as Jerry. No, he just smiled at you like in that picture. Yeah, it's just that look is what he gave me when I first met him. He was just like, he goes, welcome, right? And I was like, wow, this guy's, and then I remember they were joking with him, and they were like, all right, Jerry, we'll see you, Jerry. And I was like, he doesn't call you Mr., he doesn't make you call him Mr. And I remember later on, as I received Jerry as my creative writing teacher, he was like, he came around to each desk, each student was like writing their name and greeting and doing his hellos. And he goes, come to me, he goes, Christian? And I was like, hi. And he goes, I wish I was. And I was like, Mr. Neason. He was like, don't call me Mr. Neason, call me Jerry. And I was like, oh, why is that? And he was like, watch and learn. And he right after that, he walked up and he goes, he'd hold his finger up, or he would snap his fingers and everything. He didn't even, wasn't like the kind of teacher that was like, all right, class, everybody, class. He would just walk out there and demand the silence, and he got it. He never had to like raise his voice or come at people sideways or even hold people for detention or send them to the counselor or whatever you want. He never did that. He just looked you in the eye, and he basically like demanded your respect, and that's how he got it. And that's how he got mine. And eventually, like after, even towards the end of my going to high school and having him as a teacher, I remember I had grown his favorite flower at my house as well as a young man. But my mom had eventually gotten tired of it being higher than the fence it was growing, and she was like, you gotta get rid of it. The first person I thought of to give it to was Jerry. And so I called Jerry, at the school, and he was still in the class, because obviously I ditched went home and got there early. So he was like, hello? And I'm like, yeah, it's Chris. Where are you? I'm at home. I have to get rid of this weed plant, Jerry. Can you, and he was like, say no more. I'll be there in 5 minutes. What's your address? So he rolls up in the Mustang, and we load the plant in, and I hadn't been to the house yet. I had never been here yet, but I had heard all about it. The sunroof and mirrors and jacuzzi and all the cool stuff that came with it. And I remember like eventually when I came here, I had already given him a plant, not this one in particular, like I had given him a plant, this is a long, long time ago. And sure enough, I get there and he walks me to the back and he's all, your daughters are well taken care of. And he points over there, and sure enough, they're growing right outside his bedroom window, sliding glass door, and they look like animals. And we are now. And so that was the beginning of my, during high school and then eventually after high school. And when I started coming around here, I introduced a lot of people to Jerry. I work in radio, and I remember in about 97, I started working at a radio station in Santa Monica called Groove Radio. And I remember one year, Jerry called, it was New Year's. I think we were going into 97, I believe. And Brad, you were there for that. I remember you were like in the background, and I was working on air. And I was like, it was like my first, New Year's as an on-air DJ on an FM station in Southern California. So it was a big deal, and I was really young. And I remember Jerry called, and he had and he just called the regular request line. He didn't have the special number, and I didn't even really know the special number. And so he called, and I just happened to pick it up, and I'm like, we're radio. And he's like, yeah, is Sketch there? And I'm like, hey, yeah, this is Smith speaking. Who's this? He's all, I forgot what he said, but he was like, it's your smoking counterpart, or something like that. And I was like, Jerry? And he was like, yes. And I just, boom, I hit record. And we're rolling tape, and he gave me this really good, I wish I had that tape. I really do. but from just that moment of him just calling and me just so happy to pick up that phone line, there was about 12 different phone lines, but they're all blinking, and I just picked up that one, and it was him. And I know he wasn't a believer in karma or anything like that, but I would always say, in science, it's the law of motion, Jerry. What you put out will eventually come back to you, whether you believe in karma or not. I was like, it's just, that's how you are. You're a kind person, and that kindness eventually is going to revolve around the earth and eventually just loop back to you like a boomerang. And he was just like, interesting way to see it. And I was like, okay. So, but yeah, you know, it was a very special moment for me, and I remember like that was something that, you know, a lot of guys my age who may have been through the father issues that require tissues as I have, you know, like, for him to just be there when I needed him to be there without me having to ask for him to be there. And that was rough. So now, eventually, now we're at this life in my story here. Forgive me, I wish I could be like Jerry, where he just hold it down. Remember in class, you feel it getting choked up. And he put his chest out and just pushed it back. And I was like, how did you do that, man? You could do it. But he was an emotional guy. And, you know, I miss him dearly. But yeah, as far as now, where we're at now, I remember, you know, I introduced a lot of people to Jerry. Some which I really wish I didn't, because they took his kindness for weakness. And I'm not perfect. I can count on one hand how many times me and Jerry had an argument. And I think it was a total of 2. And all of them were always my fault because I was young and naive. But he was like, again, he was the father that I did not have, and I was content enough to call him Uncle Jerry. So when I came by, it was, this is my uncle, this is my uncle. Really, he was more like a father, but you know, I didn't want to go to that length. I just felt like, you know, Uncle Jerry just was so apropos for my man, and he was a good person. And eventually I came to live here with Jerry after all the drama and the rockiness, and I grew up to be this 36-year-old man who stands in front of you, receding hairline and all. You know, I'm here, and I feel like I'm here now, and I've been given this chance to be like the person I am today, that knows integrity, knows logic, and is able to put things in reason without having to really second guess myself. And that's all because of Jerry. None of it's like from anybody else. I know it's all from him. I mean, my mom taught me certain things. My dad taught me audio, and he vanished. Old Houdini on it. But then Jerry came in, and he taught me everything I needed to know, up until the very last moment, until he took his very last breath. I felt like he's always like guided me into the right direction. I know that so many guys my age now that went through all that wish they could have had that. And to me, like, knowing Jerry was like winning the lottery. Every day I saw him. Every day I walked in here, it was like that smile. Hey, Sketch, want a brownie? And before, I remember when I'd walk in, take him on his walks, and I'd get here like about 11:30 because he'd always want to call. I'd call him and go, Jerry. Hello, Jerry. Hey, you coming by? Yeah, I'm going to be by. It's about 11 o'clock. Come by after Leno's monologue so we can take the dogs for a walk.
And also because of other
I'd
issues.
show up and he'd be asleep right through the window. And the dogs wouldn't see me
I've known him
until
since
I
I was
light up my
15 years
phone,
old,
so
when I was
could
in ninth
warn the
grade.
dogs. And he'd wake up like, you know, jolted up from them barking. Max
He helped me through many,
and before he
even
would
after school.
let off like the light
We were
through
still
his
friends.
eyes or whatever, he'd already be
We'd
packing
hung
them
out.
for me.
He used to come over to my house for lunch. My mom would make lunch
Did we miss
for
that? I was like, you were
him
asleep.
and
No,
I.
I wasn't. What are you talking
My mom was
about?
driven. Jerry didn't want to come
It
the
was
first
just that.
time.
See what I mean? Like,
He wasn't one to,
this
you know, to
guy
go to
could
people's
not be deterred
houses.
from him offering you a brownie,
But he
a
came to-
bowl,
he came to
or
my
just
mom
giving you that warm smile. And that's
to
me,
lunch
like,
one
even when I
time.
get woken up out of my sleep by
After that, he
whoever,
came
I'm like,
3 more
what? What do
times.
you want? Like, you know? But, and I think a lot of
He
us are
liked
like
good
that.
cooking.
But to him, for him,
And
he'd wake up
My
with that
parents
smile.
would allow
And here,
me to
just
come
to add
out
on
and
to the
visit
total
him
story,
with
Brad,
Eric and
when
Rob.
he'd have the one is
So I would
fun,
come
two
out here
will
and
do. But remember, there
visit.
was another brand. It was the
I was
Cash
15 years
brand.
old.
That was
My first
one is
experience with
fun,
Jerry was
two, you're
I
through.
slept in the one room over
So
here.
am I. So thank you very much for
I think so. I don't remember. And I looked out the window. There's people naked, women.
All right, thank
Jerry
you,
came in,
Sketch.
knocked on the door. He goes, "You dressed?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "We're leaving." I go,
My
"What?"
dad was one of those dads who wanted the kids, he wanted all of us, he knew we would go out and drink and partying, so he
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
us to be here.
My very first experience with porn.
Getting DUIs or just screwing out.
And then,
screwing
you know
off
what's funny?
somewhere else.
Years
So the house
later,
was
he
on
showed me
his own,
two videos
I have a couple friends
of
who
his
are
backyard with
dear
people in it.
friends, best
He goes,
friends.
remember this? I go,
And they had
holy
some really special memories and times with my dad. So I'm gonna have Steve,
I just could never do
Steve and
drugs
Chuck
or
coming up
smoke.
first.
So, but he goes, it's alright. I had one of my first beers here in the jacuzzi.
Hi, my name is Stephen Chuck. As Rob said, I first represent the contingent who actually grew up here. Jerry is a high school teacher, got a lot of younger people since then, some of us had started even earlier than me. So I want to start by echoing Rob's gracious words.
I'll try and get us better.
Rob and Eric for opening the house. It's totally wonderful and appropriate to be married during this way. This door was always open for people at any time day or night. So thank you guys for hosting us and having us here. I think one of the things that I wanted to share is from a note that I wrote to Rob a while back on one of the important ways that his dad influenced me. I wrote, your dad was one of the first people in my life to treat me as an adult. I think I started coming to your house when I was in the second grade. And while he didn't start treating me as an adult then, he certainly started earlier than most parents. I know that he started doing it when I was ready for it. And in many ways when I wasn't able to happen, to have an adult treat me the same. He learned from making my own decisions. And as someone who could be responsible for how my actions affected myself and my family. He treated me and a lot of us who came here helped me appreciate the importance of respect for others and the accountability that comes with being an adult. Lord knows I didn't always live up to that responsibility and make the right decisions or live up to a standard that many of us would hold today. But importantly, we were given a chance to decide for ourselves. And that was for me that started becoming a fully formed and at least occasionally a decent person. Admittedly, Jerry's house was one of the places I got to learn about wine, women, and song. But much more than that, I was learning about who I was, and I had an opportunity to decide what kind of person I wanted to be. And I got to thank him for that the night he passed. I'm very grateful for that. So I know the way I will remember Jerry. He's standing in the front yard, and he's watering. And it's weird because I think there's sprinklers in the front yard. They've always been there, but I see him watering out there. And he's wearing either New Balance or Saucony running shoes. And he's got his famous wraparound terry cloth towel. And he's strong and he's tan. Most of all, he just looks incredibly content. And not just the buzz bliss of the flower that can come with the flower, but an authentic and deep contentedness with his life. And with his place in it, and with how he feels about it. He's happy to be outside. Happy to be in the sun, and happy to be in a home kept filled with friends and good times. I wish that, I hope that we all get a chance to feel that kind of happiness in our lives, and that kind of contentedness with our lives and where we are. And that would be my memory of Jerry. Rob, Eric, Pat, I know I'm just one of many, many people whose life was made richer by knowing your dad. I just count myself so lucky to have known Jerry, to know your family, and to have you guys as friends.
Thank you, Stephen, thank you so much. It's amazing. Next up, Bo. Come on up.
Well, my perspective is probably somewhere in between Steven and Sketch, with some Brad in there too. And everybody said stuff that I kind of prepared to talk about. I'm not going to get too deep. It's shocking. Think that. But I'm just going to share my experiences and the impact that Jared had on me. Much like Sketch, but a little bit different. Like, your dad disappeared and Jared became sort of a father figure. My dad was always around. I wanted to disappear, so I would come here to disappear. And when I first, many of you know me and know Rob, know how Rob and I got to know each other. When I first got to know Rob, we were playing baseball. Rob was a catcher, I was at the plate. He was mouthing off about something with stupid little teeth. And I wheeled on him with my bat. And I wanted to hit him. And Walt, the umpire, got in between us and, kind of mellowed out. And then later in life, my brother, Mark was on your Angels team, Jimmy Pacola, right? So that kind of I got to know him a little bit then, but Decker and I, Mark Decker, became good friends in middle school, and I think Decker introduced me to coming over to Rob's house, and that was when I met Jer, and Jer and Pat were still together at the time, and it was, like everyone said, it was such a comfortable place to be. Like, as a kid, I could be whoever I wanted at Jer's house, or Jerry and Pat's house, and I'm still a little disturbed that Brad's mother saw me naked. Whatever the hell else she saw back there. Because, I vowed I wasn't going to bring up any detail. But, anyways, I'm still trying to get over that image of your mom. People, we all use those peepholes for different things, but I'm losing myself here. So, I think the first thing I noticed when, seeing Jer in the backyard, I'd never seen a man in a loincloth before. Outside of a Flintstones, cartoon or something, he wore a loincloth. And that was shocking to me. The other thing, he was a sun worshiper. And I remember one day looking and was like, are these balls?
You didn't say that.
Anyway, I think that I don't know if anybody else has been kicked out of the house before, but I was kicked out of the house twice. Let me actually step back a little bit. There weren't a lot of rules when we came over. There were very few rules. In fact, Jared kept us on a very, very, very long leash. And then I look back, and Jared wasn't even holding the leash. It was that kind of freedom. And I don't know how our parents or my parents let me, maybe since the time, now I parent much different than my parents parented. There's helicopter parents now. Helicopters, I don't know the helicopter. But it was a very comfortable place to be, and we could just easily ourselves. And the one rule was don't be an asshole. That was the main rule, don't be an asshole. And I got kicked out of the house twice. The first time was Rob, I think maybe we were in 11th grade, 10th grade, I don't know. But I had shaved Rob's head into a mohawk. Shaved it into a mohawk. And Rob was a big dude at the time. He's a big dude. He was ripped. He has triceps all over his elbows. He was and he had this mohawk. He was a very imposing character. And Jer saw it, and he said to Rob, he's like, you look like an asshole. an asshole. And he was like distraught. And he was like, who did this? I was there. I was like, I thought he was like, yeah, look at, and he wasn't, he didn't feel that bad. And so he basically was not happy. And he said, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but it was basically this. He's like, you know, my main aim in life is to raise 2 sons that would never join the army. And you look like a fucking Marine. So anyway, I got kicked out of the house for 2 weeks. And eventually I came back. And the other time I got kicked out of the house, I'd been an asshole for something else. I won't go into the details. Eric was involved. We went on a run and did something bad and thought they deserved it. They didn't deserve it. The dog's paw got cut. It was bad. I made amends to the family because we like threw a bottle through it. They came back and like there were the same bottles on the roof of the car and Rob got it was a bad scene. Anyway, I kicked out of the house for a couple weeks for that too. But like later that year, I'd never dropped acid before, and I dropped acid here at the house with Rob, and Jer was, he was okay with us being in a safe place, doing that sort of thing, and I think Jer actually took a couple tabs himself that day, and so we're having a great day. It was a legendary day. Many things I remember vividly from that day. And Rob, at some point, it's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, he's like, it's my mom's birthday, and we're supposed to go to dinner. And so he's like, oh shit, we gotta be over there in like a half hour. So they go to dinner, and it's me and Jer, and we're both on acid. And we're in the living room, must be a weekend, and we were sitting in front of the fireplace, and Jer, a couple things stand out. One is Jer kept clearing his throat, and I'm on acid for the first time in my life, and he's going, he's doing that. But then he, can you guys not hear me? Alright, sorry about that.
Get to the mic.
But then the other thing is he wanted to tell me how disappointed, I was really disappointed in you when you had been an asshole. And like, but it really meant something to me that, like, when he said that, it made me really not want to be an asshole. It sounds simple, but there's so many opportunities in life to be an asshole. If, sometimes buttons get pushed or whatever, but that always, like...
Now on the new tripod.
Later in life, I was diagnosed with cancer, and it was a very difficult time in my life. And Jer, I don't want to say too much about it, but he was a real advocate for me and whatever, supported whatever choice I wanted to make about how I was going to treat myself. And I was really appreciative of that. A couple things about the later, the end of his life that really made an impact on me. It was about 10 days before he passed, and we were sitting in the backyard, and I was just asking him questions about, what's it like being at this point? Because he knew he was gonna die, and I was wondering, how he was with it. And he asked me if I'd ever seen the play Our Town. I don't know who wrote or directed it, but I said no, I hadn't seen it. And he said it's a story of a person who dies, and they get up to heaven, and they get to choose one day of their life where they get to come back and revisit it. And after going through all the major milestones of his life, he ends up deciding to come back on just an ordinary day. And so I'm sitting in the backyard,
I'm used to scrambling.
and just sitting by the pool, and as many of you know, retirement was very good to Jer. Jer in retirement went like that. He did retirement better than any human has ever done retirement. And he just said, just an ordinary day. And he knew he was as he was dying, he gradually left it more and more. So he's just reflecting on that, just an ordinary day in his life, and he was so grateful for it. I've been with some people when they died, and I've never been with anybody who I admired and respected him. He did it like Stephen and a couple people used the word content. He had no regrets. He had a couple regrets, but they were about Pat, and they were about maybe he wished he had met another woman for the boys, But other than that, he didn't regret anything. And in his life and in his death, he was just so beautiful. And when he passed, as sad as it is when someone passes, I didn't feel that sad. I felt like, oh damn it, that was a model.